and so forth. So that is a request to be able to be understood by all deities who wish to hear this teaching. So that's the prayer Rinpoche just did.
Jajin said, Endas marbe, Enda. Mama sana Samba. Endas Jajin marbe. Lai Jabo. Ladna demigod Zing waters. Zine, and the Lapons waters. Lapon, and the demigod ke. And then the Jedul, then Lazu that jam and Sanjil sugar chambers, and also demigod Zin, demigod two mundus, Kandaje waters. And the Sanjay Shirajim was shishing do shishing do the Tsindun and turned out the Ila Sane and the Dobatus Jevain to the Hazu Kegres and then Hazu Getene Kaza Jetagon Lion Obajaji Kazago Sanjela Jos Chula Ganilla Jos and then Kaza Shiraji Parishim with some Ila Sanj, Sikano Jebal Tene, Du Dijan Lazum, Matibu Naji, Shiran Dobaji, Mebaji, Doju Denje in Barawa. Hagaten Doju Jebala Tene, then Jemaya Hakasonis. What the Pamba waters.
Then a Sanjay, the Lama Yinla Lobsang, Hlala Lobsang. Gangisena de Majalson, Hada Hamaye, then Hama. Lama Poro, Pondu Hatu Sanjil Jugachimata, Lama Yangazun Zin and Azu Lama in Togomodus, Nazu Ponsmus, Ale, Lama in Hla, the Shison, say so.
Then La Hazu Sanjil Jugachimata, the Karjigore, Tajikario,
Ale, the time chasing you,
Sanjig, Shironim, Shironim was over, Tashishin, Shironim would do, and the Shironim was in the Shishin do. And then $20 down doju to Jegina and Pentu Yoris. Then the Jemal Hakasoris.
So there is a story of a time when there was a great war between the gods and the demigods, and the demigods had actually overthrown gods, and the god went to Indra to ask what could be done, and Indra then asked this god to go to the Buddha, and the Buddha said to go for refuge to the three jewels, but to also to recite this particular text, and this has the ability to eliminate obstructions or obscurations. So he prescribed the recitation and also the analysis of the words of the text to this particular deity, this particular god. And the god then took the advice and was able to abandon the obstructions which were causing these wars to take place, and the actual war was eradicated because of the power of the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge as prescribed by the Buddha.
Ani nyomoba dan delusion gi tawji yongu yores de toni du bishero de ani nyomoba dan delusion gi nyebe yinzan what the noble pen wars.
So why is it that this particular scripture has the ability to eliminate obstructions or obscurations? And the reason that it is so powerful is because the afflictions arise through the mistaken views. And if one has the wisdom realizing emptiness, then this serves as an opponent to mistaken views. And if the mistaken views are not present, then the afflictions and so forth do not arise in one's continuum. So this is the reason that it has the ability to eliminate obscurations or obstructions, because it deals with the causal factors of the obstructions and their opponents.
Tene danda sinduma singi dumba ladin han wotum dumba yina ya ana ngazu chuji duri ya noba noba yumba yina with penguars.
So, and then the lion-faced deity's mantra has very similar power and has a similar ability. So this is the reason why it's of benefit to do the lion-faced deities mantra in union with the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. And that was a translator's note, but from something I forgot to say before the union.
Tene ngazu chu dusi jeya de karsana senjen tangje ge dewan de go aris de yu ju chu res chu dusu druba yindu chu lo maga ken ge la dan dusu ge ya ne ba yung go aris marbe o de ne ge shero ne bundu ane sendu mi han de doju dusi jeba ina ane ne ba de ne tu go maris
Dene hlada midje the cheek jason then the chu kind chegare the tamche shin
chu nyale je go chu nyale je ya de ane dewa yung go aris sendel dewa yung go shamal dewa yung go are anga zu dewa lu ga bore senjen thaji dewa lu ga bore tene de yu ju chu druba de ane jeda ga bores ina chu lo maga ken su ke ne ba yung se bares ladan lama yin tene ge ne ba yung gores ne ba yung dul da she toni gon ane sendumen ha to dan doju jeba ina nebat ka to gores.
Oh, see. So the what is dharma? When we look at religious practice or dharma, what is that? It is whatever the causal factors for the ultimate happiness is, because like ourselves, all sentient beings wish to have happiness and its causes. So when one looks for the causes, or what the causes of that happiness is, that analysis or that investigation itself is dharma, and the actual practice of the causal factors is dharmic practice. So if one is to ask the question, what is dharma, then the answer would be the causal factors for happiness, so that that will lead oneself as well as sentient beings to a place of happiness. So this, as prescribed to the gods and the demigods, the lion-faced deities' mantric recitation in union with the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge has the ability to create these causal factors. So this is called dharma.
Tena ngaso nadrun do ina re modern do zelen do ba te karso gore tro zinta wa tene nya chebe ten do le wa tene ge ha to down na ten pen to chebe waris se do ma nga ta sa ji ge senga ta ane ba den lam ta wa te kar down che ma pengres.
So if one is in a car or on a train or in an airplane and can do mantric recitation, it's very beneficial. You can do the mantric recitation of the the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge, or the lion-faced deity, or the name mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha, or Palden Lamo's mantra. All of these mantras are fine, and they can be done with the proper motivation, even while traveling.
Ta ngaso pogo chuchung ama se lava ina ama ge tene pogo chuchung lo robe je do was an ngaso la do de ha dang de ngaso pogo chuchung ama se lava da bores kusul jao sun ro ne kusul be wa da bores an kusul hi ju yo are ngaso robe je res.
So when we're saying mantras, it's very similar to a child calling out for his or her mother, saying mom, mother, ma, 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 mom, mom, mother, mother, calling out her name. It's very similar because of the the fears that we have, that we're calling out the name of the deities for help. And the reason that it's appropriate, in the same way that it's appropriate for a child to call out the name of his or her mother when he or she needs assistance, is because the Buddhas, these deities which we're calling on, have great compassion for all beings, so they will actually help us and aid us in our journey. So this is why we create a connection by saying their name out loud, their name mantra out loud over and over again.
Tene ngaso lel thuson je yo ba leg in revenue ya ge tesol kesa sona tene hal jausun no sajil jausun gonjusun jausun ne kali kha ne go jau to kali khabrus leg in revenue to yoris jok nga sansa dule an revenue to no khatul pento kali khabrus kali kali june bujil mato.
But it's not to say that we can just go for refuge to the Buddha, go for refuge to the Dharma, go for refuge to the Sangha Jul, and it will have the ability to just stop any problems that we might have. This is not the case because we cannot stop karma. Once the effects and the condition, all of the factors are present for an effect to be produced or for a fruition of something to take place, then there is no way that we can stop that. We cannot only look to this moment. We need to look at the benefits that we can receive later on in the future. The benefits as far as using these opponents later on in the future. We can't just assume that they'll be able to eradicate things instantaneously because karma, once everything is present, the karma will rise, and whatever the effects of that are, one will have to experience.
shaja toba shaji lombal ma le zores ma le de mage bol nyoba chibu yores mage bodra sanjil shubares ane ma de no yongo ngaso lombal nyoba chigu ane nge ma du nga khene jasuk harul baje shagas sanjil shubares sanji maji phen to mare leres legen de jo yor chia yo mares ane shaji ge bogu ji sanji ge longze ul beberes sanji longze lu ji beji dawa na lu jamen ro tene ma le one shaji ge mak na severes se sadu sanji ge longze de khashe mo du de ul bu de shi sa yor le ji ya yo sanji.
There was a time in India when there was at the time of the Buddha, and there was going to be a great war where the Shakya clan, which is the group that the Buddha was part of, the clan Buddha was part of, Shakya clan, was going to be, all of them would be killed. And Mugiputra, which was one of the root disciples, through his great, not clairvoyance, but his great abilities to see the future, saw this was going to happen and went to Buddha and said that I will take these warriors that are coming and I will put them into the ocean and I will dispose of them so that we can make this war not happen and we can save the Shakya clan. And the Buddha said that it will be of no use, it will be of no benefit, because it's the Shakya clan's karma that they will have to experience the death. There's nothing that can be done. And Mugiputra said, well, let me see, let me do one test. And he took a small child and put him in, covered him up with Buddha's begging bowl. And took another being and brought them, him or her, I'm not sure, to the moon. And when the war was over, the entire Shakya clan had been killed. And then Mugiputra said, well, it is a good thing that we had done the things we did so we could save at least some. And when he lifted up the Buddha's begging bowl, he found a dead child inside. And this is because one cannot escape their karma. He or she will always have to experience the results if the factors are present for it to ripen. So by doing the recitation of the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge, or the various name mantras, or recitation of scripture, any of these prayers or an analysis that we engage in, all of these will give rise to positive predispositions. And these positive predispositions will ripen in the future, later on. So, for instance, if one meditates only once or something on emptiness, then it will not have the ability to produce the results. But if one engages in analysis of the nature of reality and of emptiness, then this analysis itself, or if one engages in the tantric path and the various levels of the tantric path, And this analysis itself will have the ability to give rise in the future to very positive results. So we have to recognize that we need to continuously engage in these things, not only do them in this investigation once or twice, but it is sure that this investigation itself will give rise to positive results in the future.
와지 다당 가서 란드가 파신 디발 러브 주던 칸 러브 주 사진이 자주주도 생진네 단당 가서 파신 디발 러브 주가도 레디오 알지 말베.
So in the root text that we were looking at, the lamp for the path to enlightenment, and we are looking at the great vehicle, there are the two divisions of the great vehicle: the perfection vehicle, or literally the going to the other side, the vehicle that brings one to the other side. Probably pretty good, and the tantric vehicle, or the secret esoteric vehicle. And we've been explaining things relative to the perfection vehicle, or the vehicle that brings one to the other side thus far.
다 파신 디발 러브 주들라 추진지 러버 러브 주던 띵엔지 러버 러브 주 셔러지 러버 러브 주 송레 추진지 러버 러브 주던 띵엔지 러버 러브 주 친사버스 다른 아주 셔러 가도 돼요.
So for one who's engaged in the perfection vehicle, it's necessary to engage in the practice of the three highest higher trainings: highest higher training in ethics, highest higher training in concentration, and the highest higher training in wisdom. And we've already gone over the first two: the highest higher training in ethical behavior or ethics, and the highest training in concentration. So we've arrived at the analysis of the highest higher training in wisdom.
어제 다 요송도 가도를 되네 가지고 그래. 다 되네. What is Rwa? We are soon as the Catholic cousin as choosing a choose then I could be on Yabong and
Jeju Jedun Lagoy.
Number on the magician. Jeju Shedu then Matsushiro the Catholic Shero.
Jipchu Jenga good sogodo.
Jeju Shedu. Jeju Shedune Kasagore, Tatane, Pombukanda Chechena, Joameba Tujubi, Raji Tuni Sheban, Sherojin Yusushis, and Laba Sheroj Labas against the Karazana, Pombo the Kanda Cheche to Ngalo, Damba Maruba to be Sherotala, Labi Sheroj Labas, or the ancient Sajiluda.
So when we look at the root text and we go to number 47, we'll see that it says, understanding emptiness of inherent existence through realizing that the aggregates, constituents, and sources are not produced is described as wisdom. So the recognition that these things, i.e. aggregates, constituents, and sources, are not truly established or are not truly existent is what wisdom is. So this is what the highest higher training in wisdom refers to. The recognition of the lack of true establishment of these things.
What the Shero to what the Shero was, Jedon Shero, Chutanji Shibi Shero you are, Inji Shibi Shero you are, and then San Shibi Shero you are, Shero Mombu you are, Chukolo Shibi Shero you are, in a Shero in the Yashude, and the Pombo the Kant Jishi, Damba Marua Shibi Shero the Yashudes, Marbe. So there are all kinds of types of wisdom. There are various types of wisdom. There's the wisdom that understands all phenomena, the wisdom that understands English, the wisdom that understands science, the wisdom that understands any of these things that one can comprehend. So these are all wisdom. But the best type of wisdom, the highest level of wisdom, is the wisdom which recognizes the lack of true establishment of these things. So this is when we refer to wisdom in the this particular sense, we're referring to that wisdom that understands the lack of inherent existence or lack of inherent establishment. What that Chutaji get into the net 20 years, Grasa 최단지게 된 대반이니 요아르스 최단지게 된도 구조 대바 단단 대반이니 최단지게 된도 안에 단단 대바 될 단단 대바 아버솔로서 말이야 대시비 셔러들 라비 셔러지 라바스 셔러는 야주드레스.
So when we look at phenomena, or the all phenomena, it can be divided into the two categories of the two truths. If it is phenomena, it is necessarily one or the other, ultimate truth or conventional truth. So when we look at the wisdom relative to all phenomena that recognizes the lack of true establishment, then this phenomenon's this phenomenon's emptiness is wisdom, which falls into the category of ultimate truth.
안에 좀바통이 녀도 지다 덴바통이 녀도 니니요아르스 구조 덴바도다 덴바 니니니니 주로제 타제 된도 덴바 니니요아르스 오만주바 거저 어떤
So one can find in the Umajupa, which is called the Madhyamika Avatara, Chandrakirti's entrance to the middle way, our commentary on the middle way, it just states that functioning or non-functioning, if it is phenomena, it is of two, and this refers to two, either ultimate or conventional truth. So no matter what, it does not matter what object we question, we will always be able to figure out whether it is ultimate or conventional truth, because it has to be one or the other if it is phenomena.
답은 폼보다 칸다 지체도 건가로 건조된 말이에요. 말이야. 폼보 건조된 말이 지체 건조된 말이 칸 건조된 말이 폼보다 칸 지체 대바마루바도 된다는 말이에요.
So, for instance, the five aggregates, the constituents, the sources, all of these things are conventional truth. But the lack of true establishment of the five aggregates, the lack of true establishment of the constituents, the lack of true establishment or lack of true existence of the sources is ultimate truth. So we can see that the conventional truth is the objects themselves, and the ultimate truth is the emptiness of those objects. This is how we differentiate between the conventional and the ultimate truths.
답은 가서 아이스 아진도 왔어. 아이도 건조된 말이에요. 말이야. 아이엠스에도 건조된 말. you 아이스한테 참아 건조된 말이에요.
Lesso.
안에 더 건조된 말이에요. 더 텐데레스. 텐데 인상 대바마루바스. 대바마루바들 된다는 말이에요.
So when we look at I, we say I am, or you are, for instance. The I itself, or the you, falls into the category of conventional truth. But because this I and this you are dependent, they dependently originate, they necessarily lack true establishment. So their lack of true establishment or lack of true existence is ultimate truth. So the you or I's lack of true establishment is ultimate truth. You or I itself is conventional truth.
와든 최강가를 산다나보나 칸바도 건조된 말이에요. 칸바 덴바마루바 된다는 말이에요.
So we can apply this same formula to all phenomena when we look at the house, for instance. A house itself is conventional truth, but the lack of true establishment of that house is ultimate truth.
So this
is what is meant in this particular section where it says, understanding emptiness of inherent existence through realizing that the aggregates, constituents, and sources are not produced. This is described as wisdom. So that's what is meant here.
다 본보다 칸다 제제다 아이산다 요산다 도적 갈로 가서 통고하래 미 통고하래 딱 주ten 딱 로고 말했어 다 본보도 네바마루바 된다 말했어 안에 네바마루바 된다 말 고주레스 고주 인상 가서 메시 온비 셰비 고송 통도고 말했어 대셰발라 안에 퇴중기 셰라다 돈이라면 퇴중기 셰라
So when we look at the I or you or the aggregates and so forth, these things fall into the category of non-hidden phenomena. These are manifest phenomena. And because they're manifest phenomena, they're things that we can directly perceive, and we do not have to depend upon a sign in order to perceive them. So we can just directly perceive various things here. But the lack of true establishment of these things, the lack of inherent existence of these things is not something we can initially directly cognize or directly perceive. It's something that we have to rely upon the various wisdoms for. We have to have the wisdom arrived at through hearing, the wisdom arrived at through analysis, and the wisdom arrived at through meditation, or the wisdom from hearing, the wisdom from contemplation, and the wisdom from meditation. So one has to rely upon all these different kinds of wisdom and signs in order to have a valid cognition relative to emptiness, the emptiness of an object. So the object itself, which is manifest, is not hidden and can be directly cognized without reliance upon a sign. But its emptiness itself cannot be directly cognized without going through the different levels of wisdom and without relying upon signs.
다 돈이라면 투중이 싫어서 돈이 세간데 간대지면 안에 젠달니 아주 투 아니 돈이 세간데 간대지면 투발을 때네 야 돈이 세간데 늦지 라고요 말냐베 고아차소나 투중이 싫어 레고스 투발을 중아 돈이 아주 투발을 때네 아니 돈이 세간데 늦지 라고요 말서 고아차소나 투중이 싫어 거 좋은 거스 될 터종당 이죄도 뭐 보여지다
네, 담보당 니발라.
퇴중시라. 알라 퇴중시라고 나나. 퇴발리중시라. 상발리중시라.
So when we, for instance, we look at the topic of emptiness, when we attend attend a class or an explanation of emptiness, and we listen to the various formulas that are given to describe why emptiness or the nature of reality is what has been stated, the actual hearing itself falls into the category the wisdom arrived at through hearing. So when we're listening to these things and we're hearing them, then this is the first type of wisdom that we arrive at, the wisdom arrived at through hearing. So hearing about emptiness itself is the first level of wisdom, as long as we're actually listening. And then when we arrive at the analysis, there are many different, contemplation, there are many levels that we have to go through, such as doubt, doubt tending towards the true, doubt tending towards the false, correctly assuming consciousness. There are various levels that we have to go through before we arrive at any sort of valid cognition.
어제 다 상중 싫어서는데 다 돈이 있어서는데 간대이면 주체라 때네 제바서만 저소는 상중 싫어res.
So then if we rely upon reasons and then we rely upon analysis, and we begin to think about these things over and over, this analysis leads one to inferential valid cognition or inferential prime cognition. So one uses various reasons and through this analysis arrives at inference. But this type of inference is stable and is a valid cognition. So this is the wisdom arrived at through contemplation. So previously we said the wisdom arrived at through hearing. Just to recap, this is the wisdom arrived at through contemplation or analysis. And this then ultimately becomes inferential prime cognition or inferential valid cognition.
동반이 공부를 동반이 공세야 되는데 동반이 간데서 공부했으나 동반이래 안에안도 산당부터 동반이 공세 그랬어. 동반이 안에안도 산당부 아게 팅. 동반이 공부서 그랬어. 라 안에안도 산당부터 라 공부. 샴바 안에안도 산당부터 샤바 공부. 와트는 그 공세야 돼. 안에안도 산당부터 공세 그랬어. 안에안도 셈바다 제당나도 공비랑스 공세야 돼. 아니 공자이 돈이 있나 가래이나 야양 산당부터 공세 그랬어.
So, what is this word gom in Tibetan? We say meditation or familiarization is more accurate, as we went over last week. What is this? It's thinking over and over about something, familiarizing oneself with it. So, emptiness, thinking about it over and over again. Love or compassion or any of these topics, if one is thinking about them or engaging in analysis relative to them, then this is familiarization. This is gom. This is meditation.
다 돈이 연애야 산단 공부들라 제네 공부다 마제반 조공스 카니용 그랬어. 제바시네. 주센 마부 산단에 돈이 산단데 제공스 그랬어. 투중 셔러다. 상중 셔러 주센라 때네 돈이 연애야 산단고여서 퇴상지 제네 공부스. 제공으로서 제공. So when
we look at emptiness, there are two kinds of meditation we could do relative to emptiness. There is analytical meditation, and there is single-pointed meditation, or the single-pointed meditation. So there are these two types of meditations that we can do, or two types of familiarization. When we look at reason, or we look at analysis, then this always falls into the category of familiarization called analytical familiarization or analytical meditation. So when we look at the wisdom arrived at through hearing and the wisdom arrived at through contemplation and the inferential prime cognition that we arrive at, all of these things fall into the category of analytical familiarization or analytical meditation because we're thinking over and over again.
다 돈을 구하자봐 돈이서 그 세상구나 안 제바 마제바제 돈을 다가랑 산당도서 대바들은 조공서 그랬어.
So once one no longer has to rely upon analysis, once one has over and over and over thought of these topics and analysis is no longer necessary, then one can single-pointedly concentrate solely on emptiness itself. And this is called single-pointed meditation or single-pointed familiarization, where reasoning and analysis no longer is there, and that has ceased to exist.
어제 다드네 돈일 제네 공부를 돈일 가지고 그랬다. 돈이 주베 땅다서 말해. 돈이 주베 땅다 달랑정 뭐된들래 땅다 송래고도 왔어. 레벨 줘봐 요매 중국 텐시 줄라 줘봐 도지 재미 텐시 뭐라 줘봐 찌도 텐시 다 땅다 송시고도 왔어. 땅다 송 파신도 솔래 레비 잡 텐데 텐시 땅다 지시 왔어. 파신시는 요로 파신은 것도 발 땅다 지시 이제 레벨 줘봐 요매 중국 텐시 줄라 줘봐 도지 재미 텐시 뭐라 줘봐 찌도 텐시 레비 잡 텐데 텐시 땅다 지송 왔어. 란정 뭐된들 송마도 용무도 왔어.
Okay, so I'm going to have to go through this slowly, but the correct signs which establish the emptiness itself, there are three reasons for analysis that are given in the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. If we look at the Parshin Chittun, which is the general meaning of perfection by Panchen Sonandrapa, the textbook writer for Drepung Losa Ling, we see that there are four given. But there are not four given in the Lamp. There are only three. It is more condensed. And those four are as follows. I just have to check. Tambo, kale kale laro. Tambo, nipa sumba jipa.
배신 세고 말해서 지 레시 세팅다. 안 지순 바다. 안에 장시 바다. 안에 바신 이제 건가로 요하르스 때. 대요하르스 땅다 짓.
So this is not exclusive to Panchen Sonandrapa's Parshin Chittun. We can find this in Jamyan Sheba's texts, in Lama Tsongkhapa's Leishi Tsiching, the garland, the precious garland of Leishi, of skillful advice. The precious garland of skillful advice, we can find Lama Tsongkhapa's reasons. So this is not something exclusive to this particular text. These four can be found in many texts, as well as the general meaning of perfection.
데네 가르사 데네 다나가서 제주 시드로와 다 제주 시제 데네 레벨을 줘봐 요면 전국 대세의 제주 시제는 마 인초 차질로도 어디 된 거래.
Okay, so we've now arrived at number 48, so we're just going to read number 48. We'll go over now. We'll list, Rinpoche listed them before, but I don't have them memorized. He said them very fast, so he's going to go over them one by one. So number 48, something existent cannot be produced, nor something non-existent like a sky flower. These errors are both absurd, and thus both of the two will not occur either. The tumble.
Debula Juba Yume Jungu dances at Yoba Joa Rimit, Meba Nakimutuji, Neba Niga Tanjushere, Niga Dajan, Juma Miss, Niga Dajan Juma Miss, Penangasu Matul Chajaba ina, Matu Yoroa, Matu de Rangi Jutus Ayu Yomarota, Matu Chuji, Rangi Jutus Ayu, Me. Rangi Jutus Meba de Neba Dubare, Neba Madubare, Neba Madubaro, Rangi Jutus Meba Neba Madu, Rangi Jutus Ayu, Yoba Neba Madu, Meba Neba Madu, Matu the Rangi Jutus, Matu Siguro, Sigdus, Matu Hobo de Mudua, Matu de Rangi Jusigduso, Matu Hobo de Yomaroa, Meba Neba Madu, Yoba Neba Madu. The
tumble. So the first sign that it gives is that something existent cannot be produced, nor something non-existent, like a sky flower. These errors are both absurd, and thus both of the two will not occur either. So something existent cannot be produced. So if we look at a flower, for instance, so the subject flower, is the flower itself truly established or truly existent? No. Is it non-existent? No. Is its non-existence, lack of non-existence, truly established? No. So we can use all of these basically to the Rinpoche was using debate terminology, which will confuse it. So I'm just trying to convert it into normal language because it won't make any sense. So the subject flower is not truly established, but the subject flower is not non-existent. Its lack of non-existence is not truly established, nor is, which basically means its existence is not truly established. So one cannot state that it's truly established because it's an existent. So we can't say that that it's both non-existent and we can't say that it's because it's not non-existent, it means it's existent. So we can't say that because of these two reasons somehow it becomes truly established, because we've already negated that both of these things, itself is not truly established, as well as its lack of non-existence is not truly established. So both of these together do not establish it in some way, because we've already negated both of them. So that's the meaning here. So the fact that it's produced and the fact that there's a cause and effect relationship is the first reason given for its lack of true establishment. So here, the cause and effect relationship means that a flower, for instance, does not exist by way of itself. It's an effect, so it relies upon its causes. This is the negation of its lack of true establishment because of the cause and effect relationship that something has. So the first reasoning given is for the lack of true establishment is that it's an effect, so it's a cause. So the cause and effect relationship that this item has is the first reason for its lack of true establishment.
Palawa Madugi Judan Madusana Hasheres, Madug Judan Luare, Madud Shugutuares, Madud Madug Judus Yomares. What is the word?
So when we look at cause and effect, we say that cause and effect are synonymous in Tibetan, but that does not mean that something's individual cause and something's individual effect is synonymous with every individual cause and every individual effect. Each individual cause, each effect has its own causes and so forth. We can't say that each thing's causes are all things effects. We can't say they're synonymous, but we can say that cause and effect itself is synonymous. Again, this is debate stuff. It might not make any sense, but just kind of listen and maybe it'll make more sense as time goes on. So that's basically the meaning.
Tapana matut chu jese demo mandru de ranga ju tu yoba demo mandru meba demo mandru ranga ju tu yoba de meba niga imba demo mandru ranga ju tu yoba de ni meba niga ma imba demo mandru be pana nakhi matu jins juten dil santan ne ya toni shetu go na dil santan ne digres dene ya juten oma dil santan de anduna ane tanga mamu yogares de sususan mamu tangores.
So if we have this one formula, we can apply it to many different things. So basically it's saying that it's using the sky flower here as an example of something non-existent. So we look at flower, for instance, again. The subject flower is not truly existent, but it is not non-existent. Its lack of non-existent does not establish it as truly existent, because we've already established that its existence itself is not truly established, and it's just basically wordplay. The second one, lack of non-existence, means existence. So we can't say that its lack of non-existence and itself together in some way combined create true establishment, because they don't. And there is nothing which is neither existent nor non-existent. Everything that we can come up with has to be existent or non-existent. So we've already established that everything that is existent is not truly established, and everything non-existent is not truly established. Or its lack of non-existence is not truly established. So we can apply this formula then to many different things, because there's nothing that falls out of the realm of existent or non-existent.
Ta da niba jula joba doji zemi tensi se de ane jeju gazere jeju sheje marbe jeju shego rowa jeju shego le ane jula joba doji zemi tensi so wote ten waris dale jowa ma yenle karsa wodege taji jowa kabas taji dale jowa yenle jowa nigale jowa jumele jowa kabi gune ane demba ma roba dele ane jula joba doji zemi tensi se doji zemi tensi da middle de yoris what taji luda
ne nipa. A thing is not produced from itself, nor from another, also not from both, nor causelessly either. Thus it does not exist inherently by way of its own entity. So this is the next one. A thing is not produced from itself. It does not have its own production within it. It is not produced from another or something external. And it's not in some way brought in to true, and then when I say produced, we're talking about true establishment, just translators know. A thing is not produced from itself, so it is not produced in and of itself. It does not have an inherent self to it, nor from another. Something else doesn't bring it into true establish. Both together doesn't, and we can't say that it's causeless, though, because it has causes. Thus it does not exist inherently by way of its own entity. So here we state that it is not causeless. So it's basically, before we were negating that it was not, translators note, previously we were negating its non-existence, and now we're negating its causelessness.
Ngobu dali jiwa kilengen de zhangjian ba res, shiru zhangjian ba. Zhangjian be ane duji ki chue tu su ngalo ane dali jiwa. Duji ki chue tu su ngalo denpa zhuba res, denpa zhubi jiwa yuwa res. Denpa zhubi jiwa yuwa jusen kar res na ko dali jiwa yinbi ye shirise. Zhangjian ki jusen tu gogo res. Ane duji ki chue tu su ngalo denpa zhubi jiwa yuwa res. Rangun zhubi jiwa yuwa res. Jusen kar res na dali jiwa ye shire. Rangli jiwas. Dali jiwas karisi guwaris na zhangjian kuya ane drebu de juyu dusu yuwaris. Drebu de juyu dusu yuwaris. Pana matu de ane palawa ka si juyoro. De nalu yuwaris. Mi matunga matu de nalu yuwaris. Drebu kangalo juyu dusu yuwane jiwaris. Drebu kangalo juyu dusu yuwane jiwa yinzang ane denpa drubi jiwa yuwaris. Rangji ji jiwa yuwaris.
Okay, so when we analyze this, it says a thing is not produced from itself. The ancient Indian tradition called the Samkhya school, or the enumerators, and translators note this is the yoga that a lot of people study. This is Samkhya school. Like the yoga philosophy, a lot of it is Samkhya school, translators note. So that it is still used, and it's not died off or ancient. We still have that. So the Samkhya school believes that things are truly established, and the reason they give for their true establishment is that it is caused from itself or produced from itself. Their belief is that even within a seed, there is a flower there. We just can't see it. We just don't. We aren't able to see it at that moment, but every cause has its result already loaded into it. So the enumerators believe this. So here the negation of a lack of true establishment by using this particular reason is to defeat the Samkhya school's view that things inherently exist because they are produced from themselves. So here this is to negate that they are not produced from them, negate that assertion so that we can negate the lack of true establishment that belief asserts.
다데네 데보 모툴라서 두가 주의도서 연내 제바 res 연내 제바 인자 데바 주비죠 요르스 그 장쟁글로도 거와 다 오만 단주하게 아니 모툴라서 두가 랑 주의도서 요 말다스 랑 주의도서 연내 제고야 요 말어서 그 조사로서 조사는 양자 제고야 요 말어서 주의도서 매장 제고로 마도 연내 제고야 요 말어서 아니 주의도서 yuena yangcha chiguya yo mares. Juyu dusun rebudu juyu dusu yo mares chibarta.
The kale sonolam. The
matu
sikchi ni the chinme.
Matu juyu dusu yo mares, sik dusu yo mares. Sik dusu yuena yangcha chiguya yo mares. Sik dusu yo saros. Sik dusu menzang chedugu mares. Ne matu drang juyu dusu yo mares. Juyu dusu yuena chewa mares. Rangle chewa mares. Dale chewa mares. What is the matter?
Okay, so here the Samkhya school believes that every cause has within it the result that it produces right there. But the Madhyamika Prasangika school, the middle way consequence school, negates this view. They state that this is not possible because then that would mean that there could not be the next production of a flower. Because once the seed itself is destroyed and the flower sprouts, then that seed itself no longer is present. And then the next set of flowers couldn't be produced because the seed itself has already converted into something. So it would have to follow that the flower was a seed to produce the next type of flower. So this is the way that one of the, and there are many that are given, but one of the reasons the Madhyamika Prasangika school states that this is absurd. Oak tree.
And the seed in all Shindong to Europe, no years ago. Me, Madon, but no years ago.
So they believe that. So then it's asked, so an oak tree's seed has an oak tree in it, a full-grown oak tree that is so huge, it's such a big tree, and the seed has that whole tree there already. So they would say, yes, it does. You just can't see it.
then lambuche jiwa jalen king neba yo king troma joro ent del lambuche jayo se lawo jiro ko lambuche jaya ga si jayo ro ant jil lambuche jayo se lawo jiro.
So if an ant in there had 100 rebirths as an elephant, previous rebirths as an elephant, and then this ant is standing on top of a blade of grass, how can this blade of grass support 100 elephants?
And ant de ba ina ta kan lambuche jayo ro bes.
So there must be 100 elephants inside this ant standing on a blade of grass. So this is how we can negate or stop the view of the Samkhyas, the Drangchenpas, the enumerators. So it wasn't to try, this negation isn't to isn't a negation of pride or a negation done I'm trying to think of the word, a negation for show. This is because it's a wrong view, it's a mistaken view, so we must root out mistaken views. So this is it's not us versus them, that's the literal translation, situation, it's more of a negation of mistaken views.
조바준 막가들 차비용하게 가대고 말이지 버다. 땡줄레지 쫄라 차비시 만제스. 땡줄레 안에 마무간 조바 모용대야 조바를 가보지. 조바를 잡아지네. 쪼두고 말이스. 그바 가리시에서나 타바던 사지제바 투비치에도 되네. 안에 지가야도 어때지도 버스.
So we mustn't, out of a desire for recognition, then use this sort of knowledge to try to defeat opponents. This is not the reason for it. The reason should be to achieve the state of nirvana, liberation, or to achieve the state of all-knowing, complete, unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. This is the reasoning. It is stated that we should never, ever use these as a means to get acknowledgement. This is only a means to clarify mistaken views or to eradicate the wrong understandings, because it's the wrong understandings or mistaken views that create the problem in the first place.
love compassion to ne and the wrong to demba shene wrong to tal ne so na yo mari jibarta
juta nangla
jenda shiru ka so na yo mari ko tamba ji love compassion tantric to ko demba she waras demba absolute she za and jumbal ne so na yo mari.
So there's no fault if there is love and compassion and it is done in a skillful way to try to clarify things, to try to bring a person who is on the other side to a state of knowing. If this is the reason for doing it, then it is a positive thing. But one should not do it out of a desire to defeat or in a way to look better than. The whole point is to have truth, to have the two truths and the Four Noble Truths clarified and understood.
What the kid the Naba Shivan and Jenjun Jibanjon and Yabames, Tama Transajen, the Demo Maduba Kabi Tunen, Dache, Dalijo Yomaris and the Kabaina, and never Yomaris, but that you Yomaris.
Yanja Surana.
Get the Naba Shivan and Jenjun Jibanjon and Yabames. What the that and then only magicians, only magicians at the Tanjang Dalijo Kilangro, Dalijo Yomaris, Dalijo Manzan, and then Ngobana Damba Drubijo Yomaris, Tanjangano daughter, Tanjang Dalijo Yintan, Damba Drubo Yoris, Damba Drubijo Yoris, Omabe, Dalijo Yomaris, Dalijo Manzan, and the Damba Drubijo Yomaris, Damba Marubas Drugus.
Okay, so here, a thing is not produced from itself. Here, this is the Madhyamika's assertion, which eradicates or negates the enumerator's view, the Samkhya school's view. And it's not only about production. The view is, the Samkhya school states that things are truly established, things truly exist because they are caused by themselves. So this, by negating self-production, then we can negate the lack of the true establishment that the self-production is proven by the Samkhya school or the enumerators. So if we can negate the self-production, then and that's their reason for true establishment, then we negate another reason for true establishment.
Ta ngabo ran le machi shin se de tangchen karwa yen se ya de ane namba mo ka yores ta yen le chewa se de oma ran ju ba sentan ba shira mawa do de ba ane shira ba mo ji ka yores.
Lessa. So the second, not produced from another, negates so many views, negates views even within the Buddhist tradition. The Middle Way Autonomy School, the Mind-Only School, the Sutra School, the Great Exposition School, all have production from other within it, as well as many, many non-Buddhist traditions have a belief that things are caused by something else, outside, external. Produced from something external is a more literal translation than produced from other. Produced from something external. So the Middle Way Consequence School negates that. And that is the only school that does negate that completely.
Oje ta dane oma tanju age en chue tangje raji ji maru rangwan na maru demba maru tön tamba marus. Oma raju ba ge demba maru tön tamba maru ba res ji tu se ngalo. An chue ngalo rang ke chenji ji troba rangwan na troba raji ji troba yo ares. Raju ba ge raji ji troba yo are. Rang ke chenji ji troba yo are. Rangwan na troba yo ares lo drwa. Rangwan na troba yo zang rangwan na troba yo zang rangwan na troba ju yo are. Rangon drubi drebu yuare. Ane rangon drubi judan, rangon drubi drebu yuasagende ranju ba, senzang ba, shira mando ba, samak lagu da. Rangon drubi ju yen le, rangon drubi drebu yen jiwa yuares, yen le jiwa yuares, yen le. Ranga tsenyi drubi ju yen le, ranga tsenyi drubi drebu yen jiwa yuares, ranju bi lagu yuares, senzang ba, shira mando ba lagu.
So there is a belief in these schools that are below the consequence school that things exist in some way by way of their own, do not exist by way of their own entity, but come into existence through other or through an external factor. So even the Middle Way Autonomy School, the Mind-Only School, the Sutra School, and the Great Exposition School, all of these schools hold the belief that there is a production from others, some sort of external production.
What the ngobor hale machi yen dan se adege adisha dan nanga nyona dan chanda kusuge oma tanju wares tesuge ane loben le denje dan basu bandu kanga kayung wares barbe
Litinje su
le denje le garza baba bebeka otosu kayung warda kuso oma bares namba yima oma bares oma ba nalu kayung wares tate. So
the Madhyamika Prasangika view, the Middle Way Consequence view, is the view that is held by the, I actually forgot this before, masters such as Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti, Aryadeva, Shantideva. All of these masters are the ones that hold the view of the Middle Way, Atisha, Middle Way Consequence School, and they actually negate the views of Vasubandhu and Baba Vega. Baba Vega, for instance, and Ratnarashita. All of these views are negated, and these are Buddhists, Buddhist views, and very skilled masters that are negated. So we can see that even within the Buddhist tradition, this negation takes place from the consequence school, because the consequence school is the highest view and is not a view that can be negated. It's impossible to negate. So if we look at all of these pictures of the great pandits, we can see that many of these great pandits have had their views negated by this ultimate view of the middle way consequence school. So some of these beings were holders of the mind-only school view, and some of the other level sutra school and some of the other schools' views, and the Great Exposition school, and the middle way consequence school negates all of those views.
So
the middle way consequence school took all of the Buddhist views and purified them, cleaned them, and took all of the different schools and rooted out any misunderstandings or misknowledge.
Rangon to be Jumezan, Rangon to be Jujenle, Rangon to be Revision Joyomaris, Jenle Joyomaris. Ngoburan Machi, Jen dance at the what does the cardum do?
So something does not exist by way of its own entity. So it is not produced from self and is not produced from other. So it is not truly established because it is produced from self. It is not truly established because it is produced from other. So we've already negated its production from self or production from other.
다시 초정을 된 아이스야 돼 펑펑가 초벌을 되는 다장 되어마도 다장 많이 랑원이요 말이야. 랑원은 주어요 말 랑신 주어요 말이야.
So the middle way consequence view encapsulated is basically that things are imputed, things are nominally designated, things are named. They do not, and this is why they don't have true establishment from their own side. There is nothing that exists by way of its own entity, because of the fact that it is only comes into being through naming, through nominal designation. So this is the belief of the consequence school.
So the
middle way autonomy school, or the Madhyamika Ranjupa, believes that it takes it takes the object itself, which has some sort of essence, and it takes the actual agent or the perceiver or the cognizer to cognize this object, which has some sort of essence. So these two things come together, the cognizer and the cognized, and then this item comes into being through a union of the cognizer and cognized. So this is how they established its, how its establishment is established in the middle way autonomy school.
So when we
look at the people in the room, we look at Ted, we look at John, we look at Katie, we look at Stasha, we look at all of the different people in the room, they did not have these names before they were named as a child. So when they were a child, they were then named this or that, and then all there was standing there was a collection, 5 aggregates and so forth, a collection that was there, and then a name was put onto that collection by a parent, and then parents. And then it came in, then we suddenly have a Stasha comes into being. And now there is Stasha named, but there is no Stasha that exists by way of her own entity, exclusive of that collection that has been named.
다분한 가서 컴바들 롱젠도 와서 지니 송젠도 와서 담보 가르치고 있는 컴바도 요로 롱제 요로 아는 가서 주주 컴바도 녀사들래 단등 가서 라강어다스 말베 취시에서 컴바를 메기다버로 대표가 OBC 메기다 the change is 메기다 다종 드로로스.
So for instance, we have this center, and we have the house with, there's 4 rooms if we look straight across, this room, that room, that room, and that room. And prior to our naming, there was shells, they were just rooms. But now we've put all of these things in here, and we name this room the temple room, or the meditation hall. And in there, that's suddenly now the office. We call it the office in the kitchen. But there is no office, there is no temple, there is none of these things that exist exclusively from the collection that comes together that we name as such.
그 메기 다정도요 크로랑원에 조디요 말이스.
So the middle way consequence view is that there is no existence by way of something's own entity. There is always a nominal designation that takes place on top of a collection.
다 랑주바 매치 그 랑원 조디요 알았어. 랑원 조바 랑그 생이 조바레스. 조바레 랑그 생이 조바레스. 랑그 생이 조바 인자 랑그 생이 조바 주요아레 데부요아레스. 랑그 생이 조바 주옌레 랑그 생이 조바 데부옌 조요아레스.
So there is a belief of production of other, or in the Middle Way Autonomy School, because the belief is that these two things come together, the cognizer and cognized, and there is in the cognized something, some essence. It does have some essence because it can be, it can come into being as itself if there is a union of the perceiver. So that's the belief of the Middle Way Autonomy School, that there is production of other, there is some sort of true establishment. So that, yeah, this is the assertion of the Autonomy School.
다 랑가 생이 좀 주진래 랑가 생이 좀 대비진 집아이나 안데네 대화매비 줄래 대화매비 데네 대비지와 탄다 그랬어. 매질래서 마바토분 좋은 주신 스카르사 안에 랑가 생이 좀 줄래 집아이나 주단 대비진 대화매비 차는 그랬어. 대화 데메 차소나 데네 매바데 통화를 쳐서 라우지 그랬어. 다 근데 랑 생이 좀 주진을 줘도 까 랑 생이 좀 주진을 줘요 말이 대 매장 랑은 줘요 말이 대모 줘요 말이서 까 말이야.
So if we can say that something does not exist by way of its own entity, then this exists. Then if we can establish that it does not produce from itself or other, if we can establish this lack of self-production, then that production, its lack of self-production itself, is a way to negate its lack of its true establishment. So if the lack of true self-production, the lack of production of other, negates the true establishment.
어제 다 현래 줘서 그들 다 니가를 줘 제보바서네 shirba Hindu injirita, tolu mebaji maramba chujiri jibubalago, jibuba. What the Jen Lechiware Dalai, Nika imbaris.
So the Jain tradition in India believes that there is a combination of production from self and production from other. The union of those two make it a little of itself and a little of other, and put this together, and we have a truly established entity because by combining these two. So this is a belief of the Jain tradition.
Jain tradition the ngabazuga rangon tubare, demba tubare, demba tubi jiwa yuares. Karasana dada Jain nigal jiwa imbesh gulago.
So they say that the functioning things are truly established because they exist by way of their own entity and are produced from themselves and other.
어제 다다네 달레지와 메바시 달레지와 메바시 젠레지와 메바시 되나 아니 니가르지와 메바 레라바시 그러고.
So it's very easy. If we've already negated production from self and we've already negated production from other, then it's very easy to negate production from both because we've already negated the first two. So there's nothing more to negate.
다 jampen chuna rangon drubi jiwa yuwa, nemba drubi jiwa yuwa res. Yuebi jusen karesana, ju mebal jiwa imbeji lago. Duji kangalo ju yuwa ma, ju mebal jiwa res. Tengi sozo rangon drubi jiwa yuwa res. Kono rangon yuwa res. Demba drubi, rangon tampan demba drubi yuwa res.
So then the nihilists believe that things are causeless and that because of their causelessness they have some sort of, they exist by way of their own entity and they are truly established because they are causeless. So the nihilist view is that things do not have any sort of causal factors.
Maji danda drama lasus, ko shamaja pinkal chum ni jibshida yorwa. Tosul juyo marijiba. So
they bring up the peacock and say the peacock has all these colors and beautiful flowers, but you can't find a painter. There's no one who's painted this. Because you can't find this, it's causeless. It just exists that way and that's how it is. So the peacock is given as an example to establish their views. He said there's no past and future life. I haven't seen either. There is no karma and its results. There's no two truths. There's no four noble truths. This is all. I haven't seen them, so they don't exist. He said that their tenets or their views are very coarse and easy. So the Gari Chuchen, Gari Lasang, good Chuchen. Okay, Medu Chuchen. Okay, so the subject flower is not truly established. Why is it not truly established? It's not produced from itself, it's not produced from other, it's not produced from both, and it's not causeless. So here are four things that become the next reason for its lack of true establishment. It's a little bit difficult, but slowly you'll be able to understand it more. So this production of self, this production of other, when we look at the Middle Way Autonomy School and all these other views, there's so many different ideas and so many different reasons given, so you'll have to engage in analysis. Doji bajarwa enda laban baja juwaris enda sekendel jajin mar jajin ta yong jajin laban doji juwar doji dil tse juwar ji ni song ji yorwa deji ham demi garden zen wudu ku doji tu shuwa ina an demi garden khamba me ba zuya da wader ge ne ba che buwaris de na je ta dil so je de ge an chachen ka gre chibo ba ka gre raju ba da namba tu ka gre ane jampen ka gre so de so. So this particular one is called the Vajra essence, because there here the four prongs on the Vajra. The Dorje Yoruba. Dorje zemi dense. Dorje pagijan. So there are four sides here we see on the Vajra. So this is the Vajra essence or the Vajra analysis, because of the four we see things are not produced from self, things are not produced from other, things are not produced from both, and things are not causeless. So we see the four parts of the Vajra. It's called this because of the four parts of the Vajra, and this can be symbolic of the four refutations or four negations by stating that things are not produced from self, other, both, or causeless. So this is the Vajra understanding. That's a loose translation, but it's because the Vajra has the four sides. And so the first one defeats the Samkhya school, the enumerators. The second one, Nipa, defeats the Middle Way Autonomy School. The third one defeats the Jain tradition. And the fourth one defeats the nihilist view. So these four schools are negated with this one pervasion here, or one assertion. So it's very similar to the Indra's advice that were given for the demigods. And there's also a story that the gods are able to throw this Vajra and defeat all of the demigods just by throwing the Vajra itself. So there's also symbolism there in a story that the Vajra was given to them in order to be used for this purpose.